We have the most wonderful, wonderful guest today who used to sit here. He was registered in this class, and he will tell you what it all meant to him here and how his success happened. He will show you his collection. And as you know, you've seen the posters. It's Hilton Hollis. And Hilton Hollis was born in Natchez, Mississippi. He's a graduate of FIT, as we know. He trained under George Simonton. How many of you are in George's class? Good, you'll all be successful, because he's fabulous. And he was selected to join the world's most famous designers in a great fashion event that happened in the year 2000, because New York City celebrated. It was Times Square. It was a fantastic event. And there was Hilton selected along with Oscar de la Renta and all the greats with his beautiful, I'll never forget his gown. He was fantastic, yes. Anyway, he started early to show what talent he had. And in this class, he was hired by, who was it? Dana Buckman, who was a guest speaker here. You have to all network with people who come here. I hope you've done it so far. And there was someone else John Bartlett, yes, because that's not written here. All right. I'm not going to, it's already a quarter after. We waited for you all to get seated. I know that Tuesday you have your big event next week, right? The exhibition, which I'm coming to. And I'm going to ask Hilton to take the stage. And I wanted to say a few things. There's something about Hilton Hollis. It's not just his ambition or his talent, neither is in short supply in the fashion industry. Yet even before you see the nuanced elegance of his impeccably tailored designs, his quiet confidence, clarity of vision tell you you're in the presence of one of fashion's future icons. He's already successful, and he will tell you how it all happened.
Thanks,
Pull
Alice.
that out.
Okay.
Oops, okay. There's one.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for coming in today. It really means a lot to me to see all of these students here supporting a fellow FIT grad. Just to give you a little background of how I started, I actually grew up on a 350-acre farm in the middle of Mississippi, very, very far removed from the streets of New York and very far removed from the fashion industry. Luckily, I had an amazing grandmother who taught me how to sew when I was very, very young. I started sewing by hand when I was about 6 years old. While all the other guys were outside playing football and baseball, I was inside making pillows and quilts, and right alongside my grandmother, like watching every single move that she made. She made a lot of my clothes growing up, made a lot of my mom's clothes when she was growing up, and I always used to think, oh my gosh, I have to wear one of my grandmother's, pair of pants that she made me or whatever, and I thought it was like the most horrible thing in the world. But now that I look back at it, I realize that it really influenced me and influenced who I became as a designer and who I became as a person, for that matter. When I was in school in Mississippi, in high school, my guidance counselors, when I told them that I wanted to be a fashion designer and move to New York, they literally laughed in my face. They basically kind of made a joke and said, so what do you want to do? You want to move to New York and do what? And they all said, who do you want to be, like Ralph Lauren? And I said, yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. That's, fine with me. So anyway, I kind of hit that wall where people are always going to tell you that you can't do something. Well, I come from the train of thought that whatever you feel in your heart, whatever you're the most passionate about, you have to follow that. Regardless of what it is, if you feel it in your heart and you believe it in yourself as much as you humanly can, you can be successful. It's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of working really, really hard to succeed in those goals that you set for yourself. I actually had the opportunity to go to school in Rhode Island on a scholarship for marketing. So I actually studied marketing for about a year, I then went back to Mississippi after the first year of living in the Northeast. I was very cold. I wasn't used to it at all. It's very hot and humid in Mississippi, and I don't know how many of you are from the South, but you definitely know or have visited the South how absolutely warm and humid it is there. So it was a little different living in Rhode Island and experiencing those hard, harsh winters and with all the snow. So I actually said, you know what, I'm going to go back to Mississippi. I'm going to enroll in a community college. I'm going to take some classes, and I'm going to figure out what I really want to do with my life, because I really did want to be a designer from the very beginning. But as I said, having all those people tell you that you can't do something, you start to think, okay, maybe they're right, And I also had, a scholarship presented to me upon graduation from high school. So I really, kind of took that opportunity to try it out. It didn't work out, but in my mind, again, I always wanted to be a designer. I actually went back to Jackson, Mississippi. I got the opportunity to do visual merchandising for a store called Maison Weiss. And for those of you who have never heard of it, Maison Weiss is basically the Bergdorf Goodmans of the state of Mississippi. They carry Chanel, they carry Prada, they carry Stuart Weitzman, all the best brands from all over Europe and the United States. And it's basically an institution in the South. They were established in the 1940s, 50s, and have been around forever and just really stand for a great retail store. I was lucky enough to be hired by Bernard Weiss, who was the founder of Maison Weiss. And within the first 2 weeks of working with Mr. Weiss and doing the visuals and doing the merchandising within the store, he said to me, Hilton, you're really wasting your time. You should be in New York, you should be in school, and you should be studying fashion. And I always walked around and, said, wow, this is a great garment. Look how it's made. Look how this is actually, look at the colors of this garment. Look at, the fabrics. And it always just excited me every day to go to work and see all these things. Where I spent most of my time when I wasn't in the store windows doing the visuals, I was actually in the alterations department picking these ladies' brains. They're, Italian tailors from old world kind of school of thought, and they're brilliant. So I really wanted to learn as much as I could from them. So that's where I spent a lot of my time. I actually put together a portfolio. I sewed some garments, and I actually was accepted into FIT. I had actually applied to Parsons and to Pratt. I was accepted to both Parsons and FIT. For some reason, I didn't get into Pratt, which I didn't understand. But beside the point, I am so glad that I chose FIT. I really wanted to start my own company. I wanted to really build a brand. And I had a vision in my head of what I wanted to do from such an early age. And I knew that by watching my grandmother and watching all the ins and outs of making a garment and knowing what it took to actually get from point A to point Z, it takes every single bit of that learning curve to succeed in what you want to do. You have to know marketing, you have to know PR, you have to know how to sew, you have to know how to sketch, to drape. When I say that, you can be weaker in some of those areas, but you have to really embrace every single bit of it and learn as much as you can about every single aspect. Because, when you start your own business, you don't have someone there saying, okay, this is how this is sewn, and always telling you, well, this is how you do this. You have to be able to go to a factory and say to them, you know what, this is what I want to have made. If you can't make it, I can show you how to make it. And I've actually gone to China. I have a factory in Hong Kong. I've actually sat down at a sewing machine and I've sewn a collar before, just to prove that this is how it needs to be made. And I think those are all important aspects that this school teaches you. So, basically coming to FIT, every single one of you should be doing as much as you possibly can to learn every single aspect of what the school has to offer. If you're in merchandising, don't only focus on merchandising. Get out there, take a fine arts class, take a class that, really that you might not think has anything to do with your actual, job that you're going to do in the future. It's just going to enlighten you. It's going to make you so much more well-rounded. And when a designer comes to you and he says, this is how I want to market my product, even though you're a merchandiser, you might understand the marketing aspect of it. And you might be able to just give an opinion and make a difference in someone's career and in someone's business. A lot of times in life, we are given all these things and we don't know how they're going to help us in the future. But I'm telling you, every single day that you're here, you should be learning. pick people's brains. These professors are so brilliant, and even though you might say, well, they're old school, they don't know anything, they've been out in the industry for, they've been out of the industry for 15 years, what do they know? Trust me, what comes around goes around. Everything in history, everything in fashion is a revolving cycle. The things that I learned in classes here at FIT, whether it was a raglan sleeve, a kimono with a gusset, trust me, I didn't think it was important then, but I wished that I would have taken a little bit more opportunity to even think about what they were telling me. So I just implore you to do that. When I graduated from FIT, I was actually given the opportunity to work for Dana Buckman. Dana is a fellow Southerner. She grew up in Memphis, an amazing designer in her own right, and she actually started the whole idea of bridge, the whole bridge industry, meaning those designers that fall into a price point of, say, Dana Buckman, Ellen Tracy, Maga Shoney, Elie Tahari, and now Hilton Hollis. I learned a lot from Dana. She taught me how to merchandise a collection. She taught me how to really build a collection from the very beginning phases into reality. After working for Dana for about a year and a half, I kind of got the idea in my head that I wanted to do something a little bit more high-end. So I had the opportunity to interview with John Bartlett, and John at that time was doing his women's collection that was sold in like Bergdorf's and Barney's and the full runway show in 7th on 6th. And I actually went to him with some ideas, and I said, I'd really love to work for you in any way, shape, or form, anything that I could do for you to help you with your collection, I'd love to do it. And I was willing to do it for free. So basically, when I went into John, I showed him a bunch of ideas, and he said, wow, I can see that you're a really good draper. And basically went and he said, here's some fabric, here's some buckles, this is the kind of thing that I'm thinking. And he said, just go for it, run with it. So for, a month, I worked with John, and I created things on the form and sewed them myself and was able to get a few pieces in the runway show, which was just the best thing in the world that could have happened to someone who had just graduated FIT and had like these stars in my eyes of what I wanted to do with my life. And learning from designers is such a wonderful thing because, if you're lucky enough to get in with a designer like John, who is a Harvard graduate, who studied the London School of Economics, you not only see that he's a good designer, but he's a businessman. And he's very creative in the way he thought. And I just really admired that about working for him. After I worked with John for 2 seasons, his women's wear collection actually, they lost the backing for it, which was backed out of Italy by the Jenny Group. Their backing actually fell off, so they weren't able to continue with the collection. So I actually started an evening wear company. And it was based really on the idea of very modern, very sophisticated evening wear. Basic black dress was, like $5,000 to start. I did gowns all the way up to like $15,000. But these gowns were all handmade, all fabrics from France and Italy, a lot of hand beating, very much in the idea of couture, but done here in America. And I was able to garner a lot of support from private clients. Unfortunately, time was definitely not on my side. My showroom opened officially September 10th, and the following day was, of course, September 11th. And I actually went out of business about 4 months later. I had taken basically everything that I had saved over the last 2 or 3 years and put aside for my nest egg for my business and sunk it into that one collection. And, again, time wasn't on my side. But I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to falter in the eye of such a disaster. So I continued on, my way of learning and my way of kind of climbing the ladder to success. I was approached about 6 months after that. I was approached by a company that was doing a private label collection for Reba McEntire. It was part of the Dillard's chain of stores. Dillard's is about 320 stores strong. The Reba collection was actually in 43 of their top performing stores to equate to about $17 million in business per year. I was approached by their president of the company. I was approached because I had actually interviewed 6 months prior with her best friend who was in another company. And she had actually given the recommendation, oh, I met this guy 6 months ago who, seemed to be a good designer, maybe you could talk to him. So that's actually the way it all kind of worked. And, with that story, I have to tell you, every single opportunity you have to go on an interview, you really have to take the opportunity seriously. And whether you think you want to work for the person or not, practice makes perfect, guys. No matter how many times you interview, it's a good thing. It doesn't mean that you're flighty or that you don't know what you want to do with your life. Go on every single interview, every single ad that you see in Women's Wear Daily for an assistant designer, an assistant merchandiser, or a starting position. Go on the interview. It doesn't hurt. You never know who you're going to meet. So from that, I actually worked for Reba for 2 years. I lived in Shanghai, China for 4 months during a summer. Wow, what an experience that was. Shanghai is a growing metropolis. It is an amazing place to live. Culturally, it has everything in the world to offer. You learn so much just being there and experiencing the way another world lives, another culture lives. And I think, again, it's just one of those experiences where, I never thought in a million years that I would live in Shanghai, China, but it was the best experience of my life. It opened my eyes to so many different things. And every single minute that I was in the factories, every single minute that I met someone, put that business card in my pocket and said, you know what, one day I'm going to need that person. And that's another thing. When you guys are working for people, it's not bad to take, say, can I have an extra business card? You want to put one in the company Rolodex. You want to put one in their files. But then keep one for yourself. Write a note on there. Say, I met this person in this place. Possible financial backer, possible fabric representative, possible factory. Keep your own, base of contacts for yourself. I worked for Reba for 2 years, and then I had this idea in my head that the bridge market was going to suffer immensely. Little did I know Dana Buchman was going to go out of business, 2 years later, which just happened, a year ago. At that time, I really wanted to put together a collection that was in the same vein of what we had done at John Bartlett and being very high-end, very elegant. And, I could say the words avant-garde. That's a very loose term that I don't like to use to describe U.S. fashion. But in the bridge market, I think what we do is very progressive. It's not contemporary. I think there's so many contemporary brands out there, and I didn't want to do a contemporary brand. There's so many people that are addressing the 25 to 35-year-old woman, and yet the 35 and above has often just been forgotten about. And if you look at it, if you look at the statistics and you look at the analysis of who buys what and in what departments and what department stores, you'll see that the 45-year-old customer is where all the money is. She's got dispensable income. She's not willing to settle for less quality than what she's used to. She wants exceptional quality. She wants great fabric. She wants a good fitting garment, and she's not afraid to pay $800 for a jacket. And I think, it's hard because on one side of it, I wanted to do something very contemporary, very edgy. On the other side of it, I thought from a business perspective, what was actually going to sell and what was missing. So I think, for those of you who are designers or for those of you who have an idea about a business, I think the most important part is that you really dig deep. You have to go out into stores and you have to determine, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to start, XYZ kind of company. I have this kind of framework in mind of how I can actually make it successful. Go out and see if it's valid. Go out and see if there's, a huge amount of competition in that field. See if it's something that's actually missing in the market. And the reason why I say contemporary is so saturated is because, to me, I walk into Bloomingdale's, for instance, and everything looks the same. It all looks alike to me. And I think that's the problem. I mean, we as designers and we as merchandisers in the United States, we've gotten so safe with what we buy. We've gotten so safe with what we design. Think outside the box. Your customer might be a 25-year-old Paris Hilton wannabe, but trust me, she doesn't want to look like every single person out there. She wants to be different. She wants to be unique. And that's really the women that I aspire to dress, or the women who want to make a statement. They want to be different from their friends. Many, many times I go into stores. I was just in a store in Birmingham, Alabama. The store carries anything from Zac Posen, Dolce & Gabbana, St. John. I mean, they carry Escada. It runs the whole gamut. Then they have their contemporary department. But every single woman that I dressed while I was there for those 2 days, they said to me, who else bought it? You know, they don't want anybody in their town wearing the same thing. And this is Birmingham, and it's not like a very small town. It's actually a pretty big, advanced city for the Southeast. And most of these women, they just don't want to be seen in something that their friends have, and they don't want to look like everyone else. So if you're able to give them a very modern, contemporary look garment with a more Missy fit, or with a fit that works for those women of that age, like the 35 to 45, 55-year-old woman, it's key. I mean, that's really what I've built my brand on. I've built my brand because we use great fabrics. I go to Europe twice a year. I go to all the mills in Italy. I go to all the mills in France and Spain. I go to PV, which is in Paris, twice a year. And I select fabrics that I know will work for my customers. And I select fabrics that inspire me. And I think that by getting materials that work for your client and work for you as a designer, you can really create things that are very beautiful and unique, and really inspire those around you to do things that are better. Since I started the company, it seems like everyone wants to get into the bridge industry now, in the bridge segment of the market. We've had some kind of ups and downs in the bridge market lately. Dana Buckman went out of business, which she's the founder of the bridge, like I said. Ellen Tracy was close to going out of business. Luckily, she didn't. But it's really opened up a huge field for designers that choose to work in that price point. And I think for those designers in here, or merchandisers, look for companies that are, in that kind of segment of the industry, and you'll probably find a lot of upcoming jobs, especially those of you who are looking to graduate in the next year or so. It's not always about working for, we all can't work for Ralph Lauren, or we're all not working for, Valentino in Italy. Find a designer that you really see yourself working for and go after it. And if it is Valentino or if it is Ralph Lauren, go for it. If that doesn't work out, don't think that you're not going to get there eventually, because trust me, there's plenty of designers in the industry that need talented people working for them. And start with, designer A, you build your way up. And I think you all have a tremendous amount of opportunity in front of you. Since I started Hilton Hollis, it's basically been a huge learning curve for me. I'm definitely a designer, first and foremost. Secondly, I would say I'm a businessman. Second, I would say I'm a salesperson / marketing person. And then third, I would say I'm a businessman. Luckily, in life, we're given people around us that really help us and kind of guide us through the world and got us through our careers. And luckily, I've had some really good business people in my life that have kind of led me into the right directions. Always staying true to who I am as a designer, though, first and foremost. I think there's a lot of major conglomerate-type companies out there who are ready and willing to gobble up all these little designers and say, you know what, I can make your world that much better. I can put your stuff in, 150 stores. Be careful. That's all I can say, is just to be careful, because they'll eat you up and spit you out at the end of the day. They really don't care about you. And if you have a true vision for who you are and for what you want to be, then find a way to make it happen. And if you can find a way to make it happen on your own, like I have, it's the best and the most wonderful thing that you'll ever do for yourself. Luckily, like I said, I was surrounded by great business people. When I was telling you to collect all the cards that you could and put them in your Rolodex, well, that's what I did. I had a little black book of all these people that I'd met throughout all these years that really inspired me and really kind of led me into where I am right now. And I was able to dig into my book and find a factory in Hong Kong that was willing to make samples for me. I was able to dig in my book and find someone who put up the first $50,000 that I needed for the company. And from that $50,000 investment, I've basically taken that $50,000 and we're currently now about a $1.5 million company. So in 3 years, which I think is pretty remarkable. And that's, I mean, yes, it's a success story, but trust me, every single person in here who has a vision and who has a goal and a dream in life, you can do it. Every single one of you can do it. In the last year, I've had a lot of things happen with our company. Last Friday, I had my vice president of sales pass away, which was a huge detriment to who we are as a company. It's one of those situations where you never see it coming, but it's just like September 11th in my first company. You never know how you're going to prepare yourself for it, but with a lot of determination, you can continue on and you can continue making those goals and those dreams happen for yourself. Prior to that, I've had a lot of good things happen, which all kind of balances out in the end, I guess. Of course, a human life is, another story. But about 6 months ago, I was approached by QVC, and we actually are in the middle of signing a deal with them to go on air. My first show's in June of 2009, and my second show will be in August of 2009. The whole idea of kind of having a high-end brand and then having a brand that is more mainstream is just a huge concept right now. I mean, every single designer from, Isaac Mizrahi for Target, there's Vera Wang for Kohl's. Designers are putting themselves out there in ways that you've never thought you would do it before. When I was in school here at FIT, the idea of going on QVC was like, what? Like, I would never do that. Like, I thought that I was too above it. Nobody's too above it at this point, trust me. It's one of those situations where you want to reach as many customers as you can for your product, and the way you get your name out there and the way that you're able to market yourself worldwide is through venues like that. I have to say that, I'm sure that Isaac Mizrahi, when he was in his heyday, he probably never thought he would be doing Target either. But this is a way that mainstream America can know who you are. It's a name building, it's a brand building thing. It builds credibility for who you are as a designer. And I think, this QVC project is going to be something really remarkable for us, and I'm very excited about it. As well as another situation that happened about 6 months ago. I was actually at Premier Vision in Paris, and I got a phone call from my vice president of sales, and she said, basically, we'd been approached by a Canadian distributor in Montreal who's going to be distributing our product to 65 new stores in the next 2 years. So I was very excited about that. These are all things that just kind of snowballed in the last couple of years, just from starting in '99, of graduating from FIT, and it's just been a roller coaster. And that's why, I want to just really point out the facts that no matter how many things you get thrown at you, no matter how many mountains you have to climb, no matter how many times you get a door slammed in your face, don't give up. Just keep going, keep believing in yourself. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but at the same time, I'm living proof that a dream can become reality. I was sitting in the chairs just like you guys are right now, and I was there in 1997. Is when I started here at FIT, and in '98 I took this class, and it's just a matter of time. But if you believe in yourselves and you believe in what you have in your hearts and you believe in your creativity and your goals, you can be successful. With that said, I'm actually going to show our spring 2008 collection. I'm sorry, 2009. Kind of hard to keep track of on these days. Can you lower the lights? that's it. That's what I've been doing for the last 6 months. Our collection currently is available in about 90 stores in the United States. Next season, we hope to be in an additional 50 stores with our new distribution in Canada. We're going international. We actually have been in discussions with stores in London, Paris, and in Tokyo. So hopefully this isn't the last you see of Hilton Hollis, and it'll become a name that's more recognizable in the United States in the upcoming years. I can take questions now. Yes. Well, I started with 14 stores. My first collection was in the spring of 2006, and my first collection was about 35 pieces. They were all very finely made, all Italian fabrics. I went back and forth with the factories a million times just to make sure everything was absolutely perfect. I went down to Atlanta. I took a trip to Atlanta during the Atlanta Market, and I actually met with a showroom in the Atlanta Mart, and I said, you know what, very first collection that I've ever done. I have 35 pieces. Would you be willing to put it into your showroom? And actually, the first person that I met with agreed to put it in their showroom because they thought that it was good. And from that one showroom that season, I got 14 stores. So. Well, the hardest thing with producing a small collection is you're up against a lot of fabric minimums. So try to work with mills that will accommodate you in the beginning. And that also goes back to the whole idea that you have to make good connections when you're working for other designers. Luckily, I had used these mills many, many times in the past, and I had made a relationship with the salespeople there in the factory or in the mills in Italy. And I basically just wrote them an email, picked up the phone, called them, said, hey, Tommaso, I'm starting a collection. It's going to be really small to start, but if you're willing to help me, I can promise you that I'll stick with you forever. And that's what I've done. So where there's a will, there's a way. There's also a lot of fabric mills out there that have basic fabrics like C&J Textiles, like Eastern Silk. I mean, it's kind of hard to find places like that, but there are a few out there that stock fabrics and that are willing to do small minimums. So you're welcome. Yes. Very quickly. It was. Well, with that and also the advertising, and I shouldn't say advertising, it was direct advertising to actual stores. Direct marketing, actually. I did a photo shoot. The photo shoot cost me about $12,000, $15,000, the first one that I did. So I used that money for that. I used probably another $10,000 for sampling. I used probably another $10,000 just for a space to work out of. My office to start was about the size of that stage, maybe not even that big. That's actually a little bigger than my office. But it was just me. I did all my line sheets. I did all the first specs for the collection. And with that $50,000, I basically just grew little by little. I took the $50,000. I basically made the first collection with about 35 pieces, did the direct marketing, took a trip down to Atlanta, and paid myself $10,000. But I lived on ramen noodles for a while, and but if that's the dream that you have, you kind of make it work with what you have. And I do think my whole concept from the beginning was that I was never going to treat my business like it was a startup company. I treated it like it was a multi-million-dollar business from the beginning. The way you present yourself in this industry is everything. You as a person, the way you present yourself as a person in front of someone when you're conducting a meeting is very important. The way you present your collection is very important. The right hang tags, the right labels. I mean, if a comma was out of place on a label, it was redone. If the size of a label was different from another one, it was redone. perfection is everything in this industry. You know, every single little I has to be dotted, every T crossed, everything has to be perfect. When you present your collection, make sure that it's representative of you. Make sure that everything about it speaks volumes of who you are. And that's all I can really say. I mean, I presented it to some buyers down in Atlanta, and they liked it, and it kind of just went from there. You're next. Well, in today's economy, pricing is everything. I actually started out in the high end of the bridge market, more of gold range sportswear is what Saks is calling it for a while. We were on the very high end of bridge, and we were seeing a little bit of resistance from price point. You have to be very strategic when you're pricing a collection. You have to consider all of your competition, everyone that you hang with on a floor, on a selling floor. And what I did is I went out and, I went to Westchester Mall, I went to Neiman's, I went to Saks here in New York. Although New York is a little jaded, I don't know. It's the center of fashion, but don't look at just New York when you're considering what you want to do with your brand. Go outside, go to Atlanta, go to Dallas, go, because those people, they spend a lot of money on fashion, and they live it. And here in New York, we live fashion too, but our fashion's a little different from everybody else in the rest of the United States. The rest of the United States is not that advanced, unfortunately. So what sells here might not sell in Dallas or Atlanta. So anyway, really just to answer you more specifically, go to the stores, see what the price points are that you're competing against, and go back and back out of those numbers. Say, okay, if a jacket's retailing for $595, divide it by 2.2, which is a 53% markup, divide it out again, and your first cost should be whatever that number is. And if you can't make that garment for that price and you don't think you can add another $20, $25 onto the price, you need to rethink it, It's just a matter of kind of backing out numbers. If you go into a store, you can pretty much guarantee that, Saks, any boutique in the United States, it's a high-end boutique, they're working on a 2.2 or 2.5 margin. So just backing out the numbers and really figuring out how you can make it for the right price. Maybe you have to take out an expensive button. Maybe you can't use, hand pick stitching on the collar. That part, for the most part, is easy. The difficult part is when you start playing around with fabrics from Europe, which all of our fabrics are from Europe. 95% of what we do is from Italy, with the rest coming from France, Spain, and Japan. The euro is very unstable. Right now, we're in good world because the euro's down to about 1.3, and we're loving it because when we priced these garments, that collection was priced on a 1.6. So I'm actually going to be making a better margin than what I thought. So it's actually a good times. Well, I think first and foremost, our quality is superior to most. Like I said, we use all Italian fabrics. I hand select all of our fabrics. I work with our mills in Italy to produce fabrics specifically for the brand. I also think that as far as merchandising is concerned, you have to surround yourself with really good people. I had my vice president who just passed away. She was remarkable. She was had started at Nicole Fari North America 8 years ago and worked herself up from an intern to the vice president of Nicole Fari. And she was very inspiring. So she's going to be hard to replace. I really don't know how I'm going to merchandise the next collection. I hadn't figured that part out yet. I was working on that over the weekend. But it's difficult. I mean, luckily, I've worked with some really great merchandisers. And, you want to make it different, but you also have to realize that if your merchandising plan isn't well thought out, the ratios of top items to bottom items, you'll be shooting yourself in the foot. Every single jacket has to have something to go back to it, unless it's a separate collection. The way our collection works, which is like every other high-end collection in the country and the world probably, is that there has to be a certain ratio of jackets to pants. Things have to merchandise well together. They have to work together. You have to be able to make outfits. I do have a lot of stores now that are more of a contemporary designer type store that are buying my collection as separate items. You'll also find that in the fall, people are willing to buy like a whole outfit, but in the spring, a lot of people, you have a pair of white pants, you have a pair of jeans, you're going to throw a cute little jacket on with a pair of jeans, and you're going to be out the door, So it really depends on the season, but I think make a schematic of it. I've often worked for companies where there's like little paper dolls. We just play dress up with our little dolls to see that everything kind of works together and that all merchandises in the right way. So I think it just depends on the store. Yeah. Go ahead. I actually, the font was kind of an afterthought because I actually designed my logo that we use with the company. It was actually trademarked years ago. Actually, while I was at school at FIT, I trademarked my Double H logo. I designed that in 9th grade math class, and funny story, I was just in Memphis, Tennessee. We're in a store called Joseph, and I was at Joseph, and my 9th grade math teacher showed up. Her name was Mitzi Bailey. Mitzi Bailey showed up. I'm like, oh my God, you're my algebra teacher from 9th grade. And I'm like, did you know that I designed my logo for my company in your class? And it stayed with me forever. I knew from the very beginning that this is what I wanted. And I had it already trademarked. Everything that I did here at school at FIT, I had, my Double H logo on it and Hilton Hollis. And actually, I was born Hilton Smith. So my grandmother's maiden name was Hollis, so I kind of took that under my wing, and since she taught me how to sew, I wanted to kind of pay homage to her. And the Hilton Hollis part of the text actually came later than the actual logo, and it worked. It worked. The aesthetic of it worked. And what was your other question? As far as time frame, you're working a year out. The first collection that I didn't have that much time because I was working with Reba McEntire up until June of 2005. My first collection, I was showing it at the August Atlanta Mart. I took the samples, hand carried all the samples down with me in August, got a spot in the Atlanta Mart, and then in October is their other show, and I showed the collection in October. So from June to October, I had the full collection done. I was pretty much ready in August. I could have gone in and started selling in August, but it was too late because it all kind of had to be planned out and contract signed and all that good stuff. So, yes. Yeah. Actually, I used to sit in class in high school and design evening gowns all day long. So I almost failed high school. I was just too busy designing evening gowns. I really wanted to be an evening gown designer. I thought that from the very beginning that I wanted to be an evening gown designer, but while I was here at FIT, I trained with George Simonton and actually took tailoring because I knew that tailoring is the basis of all design, in my opinion. If you know how to make a tailored garment, you can make anything in the world. It really is the basis for all of construction, in my opinion. So to answer your question, I wanted to be an evening gown designer. After working in the industry for a little while, I realized that evening gowns, it's great, it's wonderful, and I do not want to discourage anyone from being an evening gown designer, but there's not a huge business in it anymore, unfortunately. I mean, there's the prom gowns and there's the stuff like that, but when I wanted to be an evening gown designer, I wanted to do it in the couture style of Paris, and I wanted to do, $50,000 gowns. I mean, it was a pretty big dream. And I still love that whole concept and that whole way of thinking about design and evening gowns. But for me, I just learned another way of approaching my design kind of vision, and that was to really incorporate those kind of details that I appreciated so much into sportswear. And I think, and yes, by going into the stores, picking the salespeople's brains and saying, what are you guys selling? What are you guys missing? what is your average age that comes into the store? What are they searching for that they're not able to find? And it just kind of dawned on me that the whole bridge market, like, it either looks really frumpy and the fabrics aren't too good. And I said, you know what? I love fabric. I love working with Italian fabrics. And, you can't do, for the most part, it's really hard to do Italian fabrics and do it at a contemporary price point because the numbers just don't work out. But if you're going to do like all Italian, all European fabrics, it's basically you're either doing bridge or you're doing designer. I didn't want to do designer because I felt like me as a consumer, I still don't make money. It's still like one day I hope I will, and one day I hope I can spend $1,000 on a jacket. But for the most part, I find that consumers that go into high-end stores even, they're much more willing to spend $700-800 on a jacket than they are to spend $1,500 on a jacket. And I think that when you have all the Jimmy Choos, Manolo Blahniks, and a woman's willing to spend that much on a pair of shoes or a handbag, but when it comes to something that she's only going to wear for one season and then it's pretty much obsolete, she's not going to do it. And the more trunk shows that I do, the more people appreciate what I'm trying to do with my company and what I've successfully accomplished so far. And that's giving a designer-looking product for a bridge price point. And luckily, one of my newest business partners is my factory in Hong Kong, and we have 120 sewers that are dedicated to our product. And we train the sewers in a way that's very reminiscent of the Italian way of tailoring, but done with machines, of course. And that's why we get an exceptional product, and we're able to give them a great price with European quality, very well made. One of our biggest strong points this season, with the economy being so bad as it is, was that most of our stores are selling very high-end European product. And because we have European fabrics made in Hong Kong, made in a very closed environment, same type of quality, but a much better price point. So that's really helped us in this economy. We've actually grown, I think by the end, when it's all said and done, we'll probably have about an 18% growth this season, and we've added about 17 new stores. So I think, I don't know, the stories that I hear is everybody's down, everybody's doing worse than they've ever done, and we're kind of sailing along. So, I think that's a testament to what we stand for as a company. Yes. $25 million. The more money I have, the more I can do. That's all I can say. You get what you get. Like, do a business plan. Do a business plan, think about what you want to do, how many pieces you want to offer in the beginning. $50,000 for me was actually, it was a little low, to be honest, because in my mind, I had like a number of $150,000 in my head. I was just trying to give myself enough time to actually develop the product a little bit more. But you know what? Once you the hardest part in the world is getting stores to buy your product, But I think if you have a unique product, you can get them to buy your product. Then the next question is, how do you make the product if you don't have the money to make it with? If you have a PO in your hand and you say, I took tell the story. I took $50,000, I turned it into 14 stores and, X amount of dollars, and go to someone who has money, and hopefully surround yourself with people that have money. Go to them and say, look, I got this business plan and I've got this idea and I've got 14 stores that are willing to, take my product. You're going to find somebody. You're going to find people who are going to put the money down for you, and give them a plan. Say, this is what I plan to do with the money that you're going to give me, and this is the time frame in which I can pay you back. Even right now, we're 3 years in business. We're doing about $1.5 million in sales right now. We're in 90 stores. Trust me, the financial part of it never, ever stops, because when you think that you're okay, something else will happen. Something else will say, okay, QVC, that within itself is going to be, possibilities are limitless of what that could turn into. But their first collection is going to be $1 million in sales. How do you finance $1 million? You go to a bank, you go to an investor, you go to capital hedge funds, you go to people who have the money and who are willing to take a risk and invest in you. And that all comes down to your business plan. It comes down to your vision for what you want for your company. And it also comes down to you, because if you make somebody like you, I can sell anybody this bottle of water half empty, You just have to have a vision for, okay, why is this water bottle so important? Why does it serve a purpose? Who are you going to market it to? It's all about like being able to take that person into your world and show them how great it is, show them how big it is. And I think that comes from being a visionary, and just be a visionary and believe in your product and believe in yourself. Now, the lady in the ivory sweater who's writing right now, you've been trying to get my attention, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Right. The structure's taken, like, every single year, it changes. It's like this morphing kind of idea and concept. It's basically, I started with just myself. I was doing all the designing, all the technical, all the fittings, like every single bit of it. That was within the first 8 months of having the business. After the first 8 months, I actually went from my office that was the size of the little space up there to a showroom that was actually very affordable. Unfortunately, they kicked us all out and jacked the rent up 3 times the price. So I went from that space to a little bit bigger of a space. I hired an assistant designer. From that, I then went from just having an assistant to having a multi-line showroom here in New York because, trust me, no buyer would come into the space that I was renting. But I went from there to having a multi-line showroom, and then I decided the multi-line showroom wasn't for me because when you have a vision for your company and a vision for your product, you also have a vision for where you want that product to sit. So for me, it was very important that I get my own showroom as fast as I could. And actually, that kind of is the catalyst that kind of made it all start to mold and start to go very quickly, is when I decided that this is the setting that I wanted in. But at that point, when I decided to have my own showroom, I hired a salesperson to work exclusively with the product here in New York. Since then, I've actually dropped our showroom in Atlanta because the Atlanta market, to me, is not as important as Dallas. For us, Dallas market is huge. We have stores from California, Oklahoma, Nebraska, all over Texas. I mean, we do a huge business in California and Texas. Those are our 2 biggest states. I mean, they're big states, but they dress up. So anyway, I have currently, the structure is Vice President of Sales, who is my right hand. I have an associate designer. I just hired another designer from Australia who's going to be joining us in 3 months if I can get the visa cleared. I have my showroom in Dallas, which is actually not on my payroll, but they're paid to do their job. So I have 2 salespeople out there. And I'm looking to hire another person who will actually be doing my bookkeeping and accounting. Because right now I have an outside source who does that, and also have a production manager here in New York. But my team in Hong Kong I have 120 sewers. Because now they're my partners, so they're part of the Hilton Hollis team. 120 sewers. I have my business partner in Hong Kong, and then I have 2 production people in Hong Kong that do all my quality control and all the speccing that's actually done in the factory. So there's a lot of us, but I mean, it's still not enough. I mean, the rate that we're growing, we need more people, and that all goes back to when you think you have enough money, you don't, because we're in the process now of finding additional investors. We have, XYZ, but now we need just a lot more capital to inject into the company. So. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Okay.
Meaning the turn, meaning how fast it's selling on the floor, like the sell-through? Okay, so sell-through is, it's a dirty word, and right now I don't like it. Major department stores, they usually work on a really, they usually want it to sell like a 45% sell-through. For the most part, right now, you're lucky if you've got like an 18% sell-through. I mean, it's horrible out there. I don't know if you guys saw the recent numbers in Women's Wear Daily for Neiman Marcus, but they were down 27% in the last quarter. That is, I mean, that hasn't happened in the last 20 years. So things are really, really, really tough out there. I hear, that designers are kind of folding all around me, and it's scary. It's a scary world. And, I was just telling Alice earlier, it's kind of like one of those weeding out processes. The ones that are going to withstand the storm are going to be here, and they're going to be very successful. And unfortunately, the ones that aren't willing to withstand the storm are not going to be around. And it's just going to leave more money open for new designers to come in and kind of fill those voids. As far as percentages that I work on actual margins, I usually like to run at a 60% margin. Department stores usually ask for a margin agreement when you go into a major like Neiman's or Saks. And that's really tough. It's a tough world. It's, in some ways I kind of say, what's the purpose of having Neiman's and Saks or Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom or really any of them? Because at the end of the season, if your product doesn't sell, you're going to pay them back. And they don't want the merchandise. They want money. So really, the major department stores are running no risk whatsoever. And that is one of the reasons why you need, once you get to that level, you need deep pockets. You need your investors to realize that, to be in Neiman's, to be in Saks, you're going to have to give them a 53% margin agreement. They're going to ask for money back. They're going to ask for money for co-op, for advertising dollars. One ad in the New York Times will cost you $15,000. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and as a young designer, it's really scary to think that one person like that could put you out of business, but it's true. You produce these goods for them, you expect them to sell them, but what if they stick your clothes on a rack in the back of the selling floor, you don't have a proper sales staff, no one knows about your product because it's stuck in the back. It's all a matter of getting the right deal, getting the right salespeople, training the salespeople when you're in a major department store to know who you are as a designer, being out there in the store, being in their face. I can't tell you how important it is as a designer, as a merchandiser, as a business owner to be in the stores. Never lose sight of who your customers are. Never lose sight of who's selling your merchandise. If they don't know you as a person, trust me, they don't care. You could be the best designer in the world, but they're not going to pay you any attention unless they know who you are. They want to know the designer. They want to know that you're a real person and that you exist and that you actually care about your product. Because if you don't care about it, they're not going to care about it. So all that margin agreement goes back to, really just, really understanding how that whole thing works. And 53% is always a good number to start with, but most of the time department stores are going to take as much as they can. So you just have to be careful. That's why I actually like working with the high-end boutiques, is because once they buy your product, they don't actually come back and say, hey, I didn't sell this. They might come back and say, I didn't sell it that well, and would you be willing to switch it out for something else in your collection? But they're not going to come back and say, I want a margin agreement, and I want you to pay me $20,000 for that group that didn't sell. Because once they buy it, they own it. Anything else? Yes. I'm sorry. I grew up in the South. My sister now lives in Atlanta, and I had a free place to stay, I guess. Really, I was like, okay, I'm down to the bare bones now, and I kind of have to make this work. But Atlanta Mart is good. It's especially good for contemporary. It's not the biggest bridge and designer level of all the shows. Regional markets are hard. I mean, when you're dealing with high-end product, because most of the stores that I sell to, they carry, they carry anything from like St. John to Dolce & Gabbana or Zac Posen and Lila Rose, and they carry really high-end, but they also carry Bridge. And those kind of stores just don't go to regional markets for the most part. They all come to New York. There are stores out there that don't come to New York that only go to regionals, but if you can only do one thing, it would be to have a New York showroom and to have a showing here in New York where you could actually showcase your product and get them, And then the other part is just how do you entice them to come and see you, And that takes a lot of phone calls and a lot of dedication. When I was starting out, when I had my evening gown company, the first year in business was really, really tough because I didn't have a salesperson. I was trying to do it all on my own. But it's amazing what can happen if you just put together a nice package, a nice presentation of what you have to offer, and get it, whatever way you can, just get it into their hands. I was lucky enough that I had met someone here at FIT that was an assistant for personal shopping at Bergdorf's. And she, in turn, introduced me to the head of personal shopping for Bergdorf's, who was Nicole Marchand. And then Nicole introduced me to David Asher, who was the buyer of women's couture. And I was able to get my product into his hands. And, it's just, again, it's all like networking, all getting in there and meeting people and, put yourself out there. Like, I get tired of talking about myself, seriously. Like, I don't want to hear about myself anymore. But trust me, it's what it's all about. I mean, this, and especially New York, is all about who you know. It's about talent too, but you have to know people and you have to network. And I didn't know anyone when I moved here. I didn't know one person. And even this school, I mean, meeting George Simonton, becoming friends with the people in the PR department here at FIT, they really pushed me. I mean, they were able to help me do a lot of things that I never thought were possible. Alice has been great. I've met a lot of people through Alice. I interviewed with Oscar De La Renta when I left school here because I actually dressed Joyce Brown, the president of FIT. Get your clothes on the right people. Give it to them. Just say, hey, you're going to a party, wear it. Like, please, And it's hard because if you don't have money, it's hard to do, but trust me, you can find a way to make it happen. Anything else? Okay. Thanks, guys. Yeah.